The only newscast in true high definition, broadcasting live from 12 studios. This is News 12 at 10 p.m.
Straight ahead at 10, a winning tradition that was dimmed for more than 2 decades is now shining bright again, and how?
Plus, we'll hear from the police officer who shot and killed a Ferguson 18-year-old, what he says he would do if he could do it all over.
And with the protests in Ferguson and across the country, a local chapter of the NAACP asking for peace, calling for change. That story coming up. Welcome to News 12 at 10. I'm Maureen Kane.
And I'm Dan Thomas. Tonight, we're hearing from that police officer who shot and killed a Ferguson 18-year-old. A grand jury decided that Officer Darren Wilson will not face charges.
That decision set off a night of violence yesterday, something law enforcement does not want repeated tonight. More than a dozen businesses destroyed last night. They're hoping to prevent that. Chris Van Cleve reports from nearby Jennings, Missouri, with all the latest.
Well, in just the last few minutes, the situation in Ferguson has grown tense. There are now reports that demonstrators have set a police car on fire. And mere moments ago, we heard in our location it was either a firework or possibly a gunshot. Either way, about a dozen police cars sped off. This, as we are hearing for the first time from Officer Darren Wilson. Police scuffled with protesters on the street in front of the Ferguson, Missouri police station Tuesday night. A crowd of hundreds gathered for a second night of demonstrations following a grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of Michael Brown. More than a dozen businesses burned Monday night as thousands flooded the streets. 2,200 members of the National Guard have now been deployed to protect people and property. Some of them are heavily armed. That 2,200 number, more than 3 times what were available Monday night.
The reason I have a clean conscience is because I know I did my job right.
The man at the center of the controversy, Officer Wilson, told ABC News he would have reacted the same way if Brown were white.
When I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a to shoot me." And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
Officer Wilson testified before the grand jury for 4 hours, but Brown's family says he was never cross-examined.
A first-year law student would have did a better job of cross-examining a killer of an unarmed person than the prosecutor's office did.
Officer Wilson remains on administrative leave. What's been happening here in Missouri, that the administration will begin a series of regional meetings focused on the issue of race and the police. We are live in Jennings, Missouri. I'm Chris Van Cleve. Back to you.
Well, a Minnesota woman taken to the hospital after being hit by a car during a protest over the situation in Ferguson in Minneapolis.
Dramatic video from the Star Tribune shows the vehicle hitting several protesters this afternoon. Now, those people are okay. There were only minor injuries. Shockingly, the vehicle stopped and a crowd of protesters rallying in the wake of a grand jury's decision not to charge Officer Wilson in Michael Brown's death. Then that driver drove through the protesters, dragging at least one of them. The woman you saw suffered only minor injuries. Police are investigating, but they don't have the driver in custody. Here in Texoma, no large protests, but still a divisive issue. Some organizations like the NAACP are looking for ways to seek justice without violence.
News 12's Amy Jensen spoke with the local NAACP president and an Ardmore resident to gather their take on the verdict and what should be done next. Amy?
Maureen and Dan, the debate over the Michael Brown verdict isn't just an issue in Ferguson, Missouri. As we've seen, there have been protests across the country. Some believe it's a racial issue. Others believe social injustice. But the NAACP says violence is not the way to solve a problem.
This is a problem in your community, my community, all of our communities. And we want people to understand that Michael Brown could be your child.
Ardmore NAACP President Elizabeth Williams says the organization wants changes within law enforcement here in Texoma and nationwide to prevent situations like this from happening again, including stricter hiring practices for law enforcement and body cameras for all police officers, among other things.
Stricter guidelines with police departments, training, more training, especially diversity training, because that's needed. Racial profiling needs to stop.
Williams says Brown's death was a tragedy, but the country needs to come together and figure out how to prevent similar tragedies in the future, not create an environment conducive to more crime.
This is not a racial issue. This is not about just killing of black men alone. This is about social injustice to all people, no matter what color they are.
While she says the NAACP does not condone the violence happening in Ferguson and elsewhere, she says it can be hard to step back and look at the situation from all perspectives.
It's a situation that brings out sometimes the ugly in some of us, and we don't want that. We don't want that in our community.
Makes no sense to me. That's the community that those people are living in, and they're destroying it.
Ardmore resident Steve Parsons says this isn't the first time a situation like this has become a race issue.
As a country, we need to move beyond that it's not an issue of black and white, it's an issue of right and wrong.
Parsons says he hasn't seen all of the evidence, but from what he has seen in this case, he agrees with the verdict.
What I understand, the evidence shows that the police officer was right in this case. I don't think they're right in every case.
The NAACP encourages all law enforcement and the public to sit down together and come up with a plan. I'm live in the Ardmore studio. Amy Jensen, News 12.
All right, thank you, Amy. Well, fire tore through a White mobile home earlier tonight. Fire officials tell us when they arrived on the scene at 122 Starlight Drive around 6:30, it was already too late. They say there were people in near that home, but no one inside when the fire broke out, and nobody was hurt. Crews say they don't know what started that fire, but they are investigating.
It ended up being a manufactured home. It was fully involved when we first arrived on scene, and we then again went defensive mode on this, which is no interior attack. We just stayed outside and surrounded it.
And trying to make sure it didn't catch anything else on fire. Fire officials say that home is a total loss.
Well, turning to weather now, get ready for winds to kick up tomorrow. Chief Meteorologist Steve Lenore is here with the details. Steve.
Well, already tonight the winds have started to stir a little bit. That'll keep us warmer than last night. Now, it's a chilly evening, but the winds are starting to come in from the south and southeast about 5 to 10 miles per hour. You can see now running highest in our western zones, and that trend will continue. So temperatures tonight are quite a bit warmer than they were last night. We're seeing many spots, as you can see, along the Red River still well into the 40s. Some 30s here in normal colder places like Antlers where it's 36. Now, here's what's going to happen. The wind's going to pick up out of the southwest later on tonight, keeping us from getting as cold. And tomorrow, the wind's gusty out of the north behind this front. Well, will this front bring any rain? Talk about that when I come back.
Well, Sherman's Midway Mall once thrived during the holiday season with shoppers filling the building. Then once 75 was built, several stores moved out of the mall and into Sherman Town Center.
Now, years later, of course, many of the stores still vacant. Holiday shopping in mind. News 12's Kristen Shanahan went to ask, what does the future hold for Midway Mall?
Kind of a ghost town.
Yeah, empty feeling.
Paige and Jake Gilliland still shop at Midway Mall despite the number of empty stores. But mall manager Tabitha Snow remembers a different time, what she calls Midway Mall's heydays.
I remember shopping here and just going from store to store, and you could spend hours here and never see everything.
Snow believes a return to those days could be right down the road. Management reports a 12 to 18% increase in sales over the past year, thanks to newer additions like Midway Theaters.
We've got the theater going. We just recently obtained a liquor license as well, so now we're selling beer in the movie theater as well, and we're doing all that we can to try and bring them all back.
Snow is also excited to announce the opening of their newest business, Next Level Sports, an indoor batting facility and game room. Owner Bill Cunningham believes his store will increase foot traffic.
We're pre-selling memberships, and we've got a couple teams already signed up that are coming in periodically for the batting cages, so it's looking pretty good.
But growth isn't stopping here. Mall management says it's in negotiations with a call center that would employ about 200 people. A remodel with new paint and decor is also in store.
We've had some people looking at various large spaces here, and so we hope that those people will eventually move in, and that would help tremendously.
In Sherman, Kristen Shanahan, News 12.
Still ahead on News 12 at 10, we talk about it every year. What a generous place Texoma is. Today, we see that generosity in action.
And David Reed's going to have much more on the Bulldogs' playoff hopes coming up. Just a few minutes. Sports plus rematch between district rivals Gunter and SNS.
You're watching News 12 at 10 p.m. with Maureen Kane, Dan Thomas, Sports with David Reed, and from the Weather Authority, here's Steve Lenore.
Beautiful day, not a lot of wind. Temperatures seasonably cool, around 60 for the high. Now going into the evening, we had just a few clouds scoot across in front of the camera, and as you can see them here, keyword is few, but there go a couple by with the upper level winds driving a few high level clouds in. Now the cloud cover has increased considerably since we've gone into the evening hours, and we're looking at a partly to mostly cloudy sky right now. Our time lapse leaving us with a beautiful radiant sky here when we stop this around 6 o'clock, brought to you by our friends at Glen Polk Autoplex and Supercenter Gainesville. Now, Latex Summer has gone up a little bit from the runoff. Not much. It's gone up about 2 inches since Saturday, but upstream gauges show some pretty good volume of water coming down to the lake, so it might go up 3 or 4 more inches the next several days. Not a lot, but every little bit helps from the rain we had last weekend. Temperatures today were pretty typical for this time of the year, running in the mid-50s to around 60 for the high. Now tonight, the wind has started to kick up from the south. We have increasing cloud cover, so it just hasn't cooled off as much as the last few nights. We're still seeing some spots like Sherman Denison close to 50 degrees, and a few pockets you can see also in the upper 30s, but the average about 42 to 44 degrees right now. Wind has started to come in from the south and southeast. Oh, not too strong, 5-6 miles per hour, but this will be quite windy tomorrow, so get ready for a rather blustery Wednesday, but it'll be a dry one. I asked you earlier if this front would have any rain. Well, the answer is no. We're not going to have any rain with this front, just some mid-level cloud cover coming in from the northwest, as you can see here and that'll be associated with a jet stream, not associated with that front directly. So it'll pass on through with some scattered high clouds, and the wind will really kick up out of the north behind that tomorrow. Now, the big picture, good news for the holiday weekend. No Arctic air lurking, and in fact, we're seeing a major warm-up here as the jet stream blows from west to east. This is a classic pattern to have fairly mild weather. And in fact, we're going to be above normal quite a bit over the weekend. Unfortunately, it'll also be very windy. Looking at winds that may hit 40 miles per hour on Saturday. Going to be kind of a choppy day out there, but at least it'll be nice and warm. The heater can probably be turned off on Saturday night. Now tonight, we have the winds out of the south. They'll pick up a little bit toward morning, and that'll help to hold the temps up. Here comes the front. You can see the wind shift here mid-morning across Texoma, go from southwest to north. They crank up pretty strongly into the afternoon, and then they die off tomorrow night. So tomorrow night will be colder than tonight. We'll have a crisp and kind of clear start to your Thanksgiving morning, but it ought to be a beautiful afternoon. Now tonight, we're looking at not as cold, but it will get rather breezy, so kind of a chilly night for sure. And tomorrow, temperatures about like today, but throw in some gusty winds out of the north and northwest, about 15 to 25 miles per hour. So we'll do about a 28 at Antlers. That would be the absolute lowest, I think, anywhere in Texoma. Most of us closer to about 36, like you see here for Paris. And tomorrow, about 62 in Lamar County, about 57 for the high in Ada. Again, winds gusty north-northwest, 15-25 in all zones tomorrow, and really not seeing a lot of variation from one place to the next. Notice most of us, again, will be above freezing tonight, about 35 to 38. And a 7-day forecast shows for Thanksgiving 2014, a nice day with about 60 degrees and a lot of sunshine, windy and in the 70s this weekend. Don't go away. Lots more News 12 at 10 is still ahead.
Welcome back. Well, as the holidays approach, Texomans are stepping up to help their neighbors in need.
That's right. Just this morning, Friendly Church of God in Christ gave away over 150 turkeys, which will be distributed to less fortunate families. And outside the Sherman Walmart, the Bob Skaggs Memorial Food Drive is also in full swing. Bigger than ever. The 18th annual food drive benefits local families through the Salvation Army of Grayson County. Organizers and donors say it's heartwarming to see even the youngest Texomans giving to others.
And she comes in and she says, you know, when I was a child, I can remember my mother having to go to the food bank. And she said, now I'm old enough to have a job. And she said, I got my check and I came straight to Walmart, bought groceries and bought them out here to give back.
The food drive continues through tomorrow. You can donate at the Sherman Walmart from 6 a.m. until noon.
Well, that wasn't the only spot. Hundreds of folks in Paris filled the Market Square parking lot for a free Thanksgiving meal from Christians in Action. This year's feast drew one of their biggest turnouts, over 500 people. Paris Regional Medical Center supplied the traditional turkey and dressing, and local restaurant Catfish King chipped in to make sure everyone got a plate. Young volunteers say serving others through this event was a rewarding experience.
It makes my Thanksgiving even better than it already is.
It's always fulfilling, and hearing everybody say thank you and God bless you, it puts a feeling in my heart that just makes me want to do it more.
Well, Christians in Action says they'll also host a Christmas meal next month and plan to make sure each child goes home with a toy. How about that?
Well, Thanksgiving is just a couple of days away, and so is the start of a Grayson County tradition. Our cameras caught the first look at Loy Lake Park's 14th annual holiday lights as crews tested the lights on nearly 80 displays tonight. Holiday lights will open the Friday after Thanksgiving, and they'll run through January 3rd. Now, Grayson County purchasing agent Jeff Schneider says they have more lights than ever this year. He says putting the displays up is a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Just the happiness that you see on the faces of the people when they're driving through. When they come up to the donation booth, there are smiles, the kids are smiling, and even Grandma and Grandpa are smiling and just saying how wonderful it was and how beautiful it was.
It's free to drive through the display, but donations are greatly appreciated. All the money goes back to keep the light show running. The public is invited to the opening ceremony on November 28th at 5 p.m. in front of Frontier Village at Loy Lake Park. We'll be right back. Nearly every high school has their own tradition when it comes to football and the victories they celebrate each year.
And for the Howe Bulldogs, a tradition that was once lost, actually, is now back in the heart of downtown. News 12's Stephen Salas has that story.
The lights of Friday night shine bright in the state of Texas, and things are no different in Howe. And as players from the Howe Bulldogs change from year to year, the city is making sure one thing remains the same.
What it represents is the community coming together. It's something that the kids can look forward to as a goal, and it also is something that people that have played before can look back on.
I always remembered how exciting it was after the ball games when you got through. We gathered on the outside with Coach Simmons and previous coaches.
The Victory Light, a Howe tradition, started in 1977, the bright V on the press box of the stadium. But the light went out in 1992 when the V was replaced by the Bulldog logo. Now it's back and brighter than ever.
It brings back that sense of community pride and brings everyone together.
The V is now located in the heart of downtown for the entire community to see.
After the game, it's great to look up there and see that victory light. Lots of pride goes into it, hard work for the games, getting ready, prepared to play in that game, and then actually see that payoff, see that victory up there, knowing that what you've accomplished.
And as Howe prepares to take on Wascom this Friday night in Tyler, in the playoff game that marks the furthest they've ever come in the playoffs, they are hoping to light the V one more time.
It's just a great thing for the community. Everybody's behind the Bulldogs, so go Bulldogs.
In Howe, Stephen Salas, News 12.
What
Go
a great
Bulldogs.
tradition. Yeah, let's keep that V lit. Right?
Coming up next in sports, several Grayson County football teams, including the Howe Bulldogs, gearing up for round 3.
Yeah, college hoops taking over Texoma 2, Southeastern, ECU, and AC all in action. Sports coming up next.
Be sure and join us bright and early tomorrow morning. It's Workout Wednesday.
And weather-wise, could we see temperatures above normal by Thanksgiving?
And a Texoma group is speaking out about fracking.
Join us from 5 to 7 for News 12 AM and from 7 to 8 for News 12 Good Day.
Now, your award-winning local sports coverage. Here's David Reed.
The high school football playoffs continue this week, and there's a couple of great games in Denison. We talked about the looming Battle of the Boroughs last night, but on Saturday, 2 other Texoma teams get together with a trip to the regional finals on the line. And what a game it should be. The Gunter Tigers and S&S Rams in the same district played just a few weeks ago when Gunter won 35-7. The Rams feel like they have improved a lot since then. Gunter has done nothing but win. These two hook up on Saturday afternoon at Munson Stadium.
It's definitely 2 programs that know a lot about each other, and so it should just be a good football game come Saturday afternoon.
There's a whole lot of passion in this game. You know, that's probably the best way I can describe it, is there's just so much passion.
And as we just told you a moment ago, the Howell Bulldogs are headed to Tyler to take on the second-ranked team in the state. Howell will battle Wascom on Friday night. For the Bulldogs, it's been a record-tying run, matching their deepest playoff effort. Now they try to do one better.
If I'm going to play one of the best teams in the state of Texas, I want to play them on Thanksgiving. I've seen a lot of teams, you know, get upset on Thanksgiving week because they don't handle it correctly, and you know, kids get distracted and things like that. So. You know, if I was to choose when I was meet up with them, I'd choose, you know, Thanksgiving holidays.
College football rankings are out, and if this looks a lot like last week, that's because nothing has changed at the top. Same 4 teams. TCU stays at 5. Baylor stays at 7. Oklahoma moves up a little bit. They're now number 20. The undefeated Southeastern women hosting St. Gregory's tonight at Bloomer Sullivan. First half, Taylor Richards throws it to Emily Williams, and she finishes inside with the basket. Later, it's Williams again getting into the paint using the nice spin move. Gets the bucket to go. She had 14 points. Then they move it around to Richards, and she'll take it into the paint using the little scoop shot, count it, and the foul. Southeastern gets the win. They're still undefeated, 78-62. The East Central Lady Tigers have home court against Cameron tonight. Tight game in the second half. Aaron Walling taking the pull-up jumper. It's good. Lady Tigers pull ahead. Then Walling goes down low to Dylan Webster. She drains the turnaround shot as the Lady Tigers add to their lead. She had 31 tonight. Then Webster with it again finds Ashley Kelman-Poto, 2 of her 20. Lady Tigers get the win, 90-81. Staying in Ada, it's the East Central men taking on Rogers State. Early going, Henry Plono getting the ball down low. He'll get the lay-in to go for the Tigers. Then they are excited. ECU moving the ball around. Brandon Lucas rising for 3. And the Tigers look good early, but the Hillcats would prove too much in this one. Darren Banton with a 3 of his own. Rogers State pulls this one out on the road, 84-70. The Austin College Roos on the home floor tonight taking on Bacone in the first. They get it out to Austin Freet, and Freet from 3 swishes it through. Then Jeremy Swisher with the quick move to the basket. He gets the hoop and the harm, 16 points for him, but it was not enough. Bacone beats Austin College tonight, 84-75. Tough night for the Roos, but hey, those Southeastern women haven't lost a game yet, so they're doing
really?
well. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Great to hear that. All right. Thanks, David.
You bet.
All right. And Steve, what's our weather got in store for us?
You know, I haven't really mentioned this very much. We talked about how great the weather's going to be here for Thanksgiving, but that would cover a radius of several hundred miles from Texoma. Going to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Dallas, Austin this holiday weekend. Looking great for travel, yeah. So let's talk about what's going on with that tonight. We have the wind starting to come back out of the south, so it won't be as cold tonight as it was last night. Most of us should escape a freeze. In fact, a lot of us will be hanging around 37, 38 degrees in the morning. And it'll be getting rather breezy overnight and into your Wednesday. This front will drop in the morning. We'll get gusty north winds behind it. Really won't cool off any. Still tomorrow about 55-60. Now the big blue H drops down out of Canada, but this time we're just getting a very edge of this air mass, so no big cooling. In fact, for Thanksgiving, looking at temperatures to be about 60 for the high, and we crank it up in the wind department this weekend. That's the one thing. We're going to have a lot of gusty winds Saturday and Sunday and Friday too, but we're going to boost those temps into the 70s.
Wow. Oh my gosh, it's like a blast of spring almost.
I mean, it's ironic. We had a cold month and a warm ending.
Right, there you go. All right, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, great to hear for everybody that's going to be hitting the road.
It's pretty good.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Good night.